Hey guys, Jim here. Welcome in once again. Today I just want to do a quick update video to let you guys see the new Hellraiser V3, the variant 3. So the Hellraiser has gone through just a couple of evolutions over the past 5 or 6 years that I've been making it. And I wanted to kind of explain the differences between the new version and the old. So let's go ahead and start the intro and get into this bad boy. Okay, with that out of the way, let me also remind you to please like and subscribe if you like the content on my channel, as well as join my Patreon as well for your chance to win free knives. I have been getting requests in the comments recently that people would like to see me make one of my knives to do a Patreon giveaway, so I will be doing that in the near future. So if you like what you see, you'll probably get a chance to get one of these in a few months. So let's start things off with the Hellraiser series in general. I developed this particular model quite a while back, and the original version, the V1, did not have this forward finger choil. It just simply had a sharpening notch back here and a larger finger guard, a wider finger guard. Length remained the same. And over the course of making that knife, I got a few requests from people, hey, would you make a forward finger choil in it? And I really didn't want to do it. It was something that I didn't want to change the design of. I liked it how it was. I was very comfortable with that particular knife. And one day, there was just an oopsie as I was making a customer's knife. And I messaged him, I'm like, hey, how would you like to be the first guy with a forward finger choil? Because cutting that choil in would have removed the mistake that I had made when I was making that knife. He's like, actually, yes, I'm one of the people that really wanted that. So I added it. And I got to tell you, not often are the general public correct about what you should do to change your designs. But, everybody that said so, they were right. I actually preferred that finger choil once I handled the knife having it done, and the V2 was born. Otherwise, everything was the same recurve, tanto, harpoon. And I got to tell you, it's very, very easily become my favorite model out of all the knives that I make. I do a lot of different variations, some mild, some wild. Lots of different finishes, lots of different materials, dressy, user finishes, everything in between. So what I want to do here is show you the differences between having the V2 and the V3. The V2 has not been retired. I do still offer that model. I don't know that I'm ever going to discontinue it. The V3 is just simply an addition to the line. Now, let's give you some side-by-side comparisons here between a V2 and a V3. Typically, I don't ever have any knives sitting here to be able to do this with, but we're just 2 days away from Blade Show Texas of 2022, and these are some of the knives that I've made for that show. So I actually have some sitting here. So the biggest differences, I suppose if I lay them out this way, it might be a little bit easier for you to see, even though the angle is not straight down on it. The biggest changes are, number one, the V3 is larger than the V2. The V2 has a 4-inch blade and about 9 inches in overall length, whereas the V3 is 10.5 inches overall with a 4.25-inch blade. It has a longer but lower profile harpoon. I wanted to bring the harpoon further back onto the blade. And it has a completely different handle shape. If you take a look at these, you see they are radically different in their handle shape. And this was born from a different model that I make. Actually, 2 different models now use that handle shape. The more subtle changes are going to be number one in the grind. I don't know if I can hold both of these up without covering too much. You'll notice that the recurve is much more subtle. It's a gentler sweep on that recurve with a lot more belly to it. And slightly larger forward finger choils for those of us with fatter fingers. You have this main finger opening here is going to be longer and larger than the V2 was. You have a wider finger guard than most of them. I did this one just a little bit differently for the show, but this is what the finger guard typically looks like in its width. That is a wider finger guard. Doesn't do anything for performance. It's just a looks thing. And then I canted the handle back quite a bit more than the original Hellraiser V1 and V2. So you've got more of a cant this way, and it brings the blade a little bit more downward when you're holding the knife. So those are the major changes. This, by the way, is my dark satin hand rub. This was a lot of fun to do. It's a pain in the ass finish, and it's really hard when you do a hand rub satin finish to then go acid etch your blade. You're kind of like, oh man, do I really want to cover up all that work that I just did? The hours and hours of hand rubbing, but that's fun. And this is the new camo quartz in their 80s colorway. This was a really, really fun knife to make. I'm going to say it right now. I was a big fan of Carbo Quartz, and Carbo Quartz no longer exists. And this stuff is the only carbon fiber I have used that grinds in the same way. It feels the same way, has the same odor. When you take off your respirator, when you're done working, the dust is still in the air and you can smell it. I have a sneaking suspicion that camo carbon actually is made in the same way that Carbo Quartz was. So that's just my personal theory. So when you're holding the knife, it is a larger grip. So those of you with larger hands, you're going to have about another inch, almost inch and a half in length. And it also changes the way that you can hold it in a variety of different grips. I'm not going to swing this around too much since it's a knife I have to sell. I don't want to drop it on the ground and do something stupid. And it's also getting the Coke bottle shape to the handles as well. So from the midsection toward the Devil's Moon Crescent, it is angled and sloped inward. What I typically do is I just taper the tips on a contoured handle on the V2s. So they're tapered down to the blade, so there's no way that they can snag or get broken or anything like that. But with the Coke bottle shape, you're bringing that completely flat and straight down, and then you are going to a contact wheel to create this concave on both sides. And that really does create a very, very comfortable grip. I started doing that on a couple of V2s, and it's something that I do on another one of my models that people really, really seem to like once they got them. So that's going to be something going forward. This is going to be the standard handle shape for the V3. Now, if somebody wants just a standard contoured handle, I'll be happy to do that, but this is the standard configuration. Another difference is going to be on that finger guard. I just put a bevel on each side. Again, it doesn't do anything for performance whatsoever. It just adds a little bit of an aesthetic touch, a little bit more of an aggressive look, and who doesn't like just random additional bevels on their knives? The scales, like my signature has been on many of my knives, is to begin to curve downward going into the crescent. Very challenging knife to make. I wanted to grind it a little bit differently. This one has a fine hand rub satin on the flats and then a high satin for the belt grinds on the bevels. This one's a little bit of a challenge to grind. What I did was when I made the prototype, I was very lucky to have a customer that already had a V2 on order. And when I was prototyping and showing pictures on my Instagram, he's like, hey, I really want that prototype. Are you going to sell it? So we ended up doing a package deal on the two. Because I said, you know what, I really want to grind a V2 on the same day I start figuring out my grind for the V3. And it really helped me to work on this. I wanted to simplify it a little bit, and I wanted to make it look longer than it is, instead of going with a really crazy recurve and a very high grind that, you know, it kind of heightens the look of the blade. I wanted this to be a sleeker rendition of the Hellraiser. I still wanted you to look at it and go, that is definitely a Hellraiser, but I wanted to create enough of a difference where it was just as desirable. So it's a longer, sleeker kind of representation of the Hellraiser lineage. And the Hellraiser, not only has it gone through its iterations, but it's also had its offshoots. I've done the Hellbound and Hellseeker models. Hellseeker is the most complex because I'm doing a reverse compound grind on those. I don't believe I have one. I don't have one here within reach. One will be going with me to Blade Show, however. And it's just a completely different look, but you can still look at it and go, this is definitely derivative of the Hellraiser line. One of the hardest things to do as a knife maker, really as a designer of anything, is to create a design DNA, something where people can look at your product and instantly recognize that it's yours, but not be so repetitive that everything looks the same that you design. So I've tried to work in some key elements into my designs from model to model where you can look at them and go, that is definitely made by the same guy, even though it's a completely different model. So again, that's not broken up here. You can definitely look at this and know that it's part of the Hellraiser line, even though it is dramatically different in many ways and subtly different in many other ways. So having the Hellseeker, having the Hellbound I did retire. That was the double recurve Tanto harpoon. It was a real pain in the ass to grind, and I just got to the point where I didn't enjoy it. So I'm always trying to take what everyone likes in a current model. If I'm going to do a new variant, I like to carry those things over and then add something that makes it worthwhile. It makes it worth creating a new model, naming a new model, so on and so forth. All of the Hellraisers have a very, very thin grind, so you're going to have very thin edge thickness behind the edge. Excuse me, bevel thickness behind the edge. These are made to be slicers. They're not made to be choppers in any way. I mean, it's still strong enough to probably do a little bit of light hacking, but that's not what the knife is designed for. What I like to do is design specific models for specific things. And the Hellraisers definitely are more of a slicer, more of a utilitarian knife in that way of the blade shape. Definitely could be considered a fighting knife as well, if that's what you're into. Most of the things that I work on tend to be in that tactical style. Now, while this is a dressier model, having the Amboina Burl hybrid scales, I really love how these came out with the colors in the resin and the way the Amboina Burl is kind of broken up. It's a really, really sexy look. Most commonly, you're probably going to be seeing carbon fiber on this model. Carbon fiber maybe with some colored liners or glow-in-the-dark liners, something like that. That tends to be very, very popular with customer orders. And honestly, when I make a spec knife, when I make a knife how I want to make it, a lot of times I will go with a carbon fiber, whether it be marbled or twill or shredded or something like that. I really do enjoy the look and the feel and the durability of carbon fiber. Now, I don't want to make this video too long and belabor any of this. I just want to give you guys a look at these so that you can see what the comparisons are. If you're ever scrolling through my Instagram and you're like, well, I see it says V3. What the hell's the difference between a V3 and a V2? There you go. There are your differences between the two knives. Some areas are dramatic, some areas are less. This, by the way, is my dark granite finish, my dark acid etched stone wash. Give you a quick look at that. And that's an option on every knife model that I make. Actually, I don't want to say that because I'm not sure I can offer it on the larger V3 because I'm not entirely certain yet that that 10.5-inch knife is going to fit in my tumbler. So until I experiment with that, I'm not going to say that that's an option. But it's generally an option on all of my other knives. So just want to give you guys that quick look. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them down in the comments below, and I'll do my best to get back to you and answer them. As far as orders go, I took 10 orders for 2022. I'm probably not going to be taking any more custom orders for it. I'm going to fulfill those 10. I still have a backlog on all my other knives, so I'm a little bit busy. And then I'm going to try to release probably 4 or 5 more throughout the year as spec builds that I make openly available on my Instagram. So if you ever want to try to get a knife from me and you haven't placed a custom order, you can always just follow my Instagram. I do my very best to make 1 to 2 knives per month that are openly available, because it's never fun to find a maker whose knives that you like and then find out that their books are closed or they're a year or two out, and it's just impossible to get them. Or they only do auctions and you're always getting priced out. I really do my very best to make a couple knives available per month. I can't always do it. Like I said, I do have a big backlog. I have a couple of very large dealer orders I'm doing this year, so I really don't want to go too crazy killing myself trying to make spec knives each month, but I will do my best to satisfy everybody that has the desire to own one of my knives. I want to thank you guys, as always, for the continued support here on my channel as well as in my knife making, and I'll see you guys on the next video.